Cadillac grills, Cadillac mills. Check out the oil, my Cadillac. Watch yourself, shake your ass. I came there with my front like they had the manpower like more or less, more so.
Season 3.
Welcome back to Rap of Ages Season 3, our podcast where we're breaking down the best hip-hop hits from the year Y2K, talking about what was happening, why it was popular, what they were thinking, and where it all went wrong.
Where did it all go wrong, Brian?
Well, this week, it's where it went wrong in air quotes for me because it's more like where did it turn and go right? It's when one member of one of the best-selling rap groups of all time decided he just didn't want to rap anymore. So with that, I'm Brian.
And I'm DJ Turntable.
And I'm Jared Johnson. If you don't know that late 90s and early 2000s hip-hop isn't safe for work, small children, or your virgin ears, well, we don't know how to help you.
You're completely on your own. And as always, check us out on social media or wherever you get your podcasts. We're up on iTunes, Google, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Spotify.
Hit us up in that social thing at ROA Podcast on Insta and Twitter, Rap of Ages Podcast on Facebook, Rap of Ages Podcast at Gmail, and of course, don't forget to hit up the reading list on Nook.
Hit us up on Nook. For the hip-hop heads, we're still pumping out the Evolutions mixtapes on the same podcast feeds. For more and links to every possible way to listen, don't forget to check out the webpage, rapofages.com, or just shout, play Rap of Ages Podcast at your device.
And if you like the show, as always, please tell people how awesome we are. Subscribe, rate us, write a review, all that stuff that makes the internet very, very happy to see you. And if you don't like us, you can tell Jared he accepts post in his remote farm in upstate New York. Please feel free to send a letter, certified letter. That's the only way he accepts things anymore.
Pony Express.
Via Pony Express. But of course, and most importantly, thank you all very much for listening. So with that, Jared, Dave, who do we got this week?
Well, the South has something to say.
Oh.
We are back deep down south with one of the funkiest Spatiopolodocious groups of all time. And of course, I've pronounced that wrong, and we're talking about Outkast.
No, I think you nailed it. I think you absolutely nailed it. How many times did you practice that before you actually tried to say it? 0
times.
That's what makes you a professional. I only do one take.
Before we get too far into this, I think we should have a disclaimer at the beginning of this to let everybody know that it is impossible to overstate the impact that Outkast has had on hip-hop and music and culture in general. And they are on the very, very short list of the best hip-hop groups of all time. And we cannot possibly do them justice with a 1-hour podcast. That is all.
I thought you were going to give a disclaimer about how we didn't realize we were doing 2 Erykah Badu related songs in a row without talking about Erykah Badu.
That too.
That was going to be one of my jokes, which I'll just throw it out there. Is just sitting there, and I didn't realize that we were doing that at the time that we were deciding what songs we were going to decide to do. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you've got a rapper like Common, who is this profound artist, and he is just blown away by the magnitude of just Erykah Badu in all of her Badu-ness. And then all of a sudden now you're getting to another song where you've got another incredible artist who then is also just blown away and has to have a song to the same woman, same girl. Like, it's just like, wow, Erykah Badu must be the most incredible person in all of human history. And to go out with her, even for one day, must be a transcendental experience. Like, there must be no words for what Erykah Badu and all of her Badu-ness does to the male ego hormone mentality.
You meant penis.
You're dancing.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Right. It's all right.
dancing around it. I did have to go look up like how many other songs were inspired by Erykah Badu, and I didn't find a ton. So we
So just
may
these
be
two,
covering
back-to-back songs.
maybe covering back-to-back hip-hop love ballads about
But
Erykah
these are two of
Badu
the most
and some
influential songs of the year, though. It's just these two songs, you could arguably say they kind of changed hip hop, and it's just like, and they're about the same person.
So of course we're talking about Sorry Miss Jackson off Outkast's fourth album Stankonia, and I'll let you guys get into what Stankonia meant and where Outkast fits in the whole genre of hip hop.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the questions that I had for you guys. But that was so my thought too, right? So this is Stankonia. This is Outkast, one of the Jared, awesome disclaimer, one of the most influential groups and people, both of them, in all of hip hop. But we're covering their fourth album. They met in 1992, and we're covering their second single off of their fourth album. So, I mean, for me, it makes sense to cover this because even though they were influential in hip hop, I did not necessarily understand the impact until digging into the song, into the content, into just how popular this was, not just in rap, but this was like number one in like the adult charts. This was number one, and God, it might have even been country. I mean, every single musical genre, this was hitting their top 10. Every station wanted to hear Miss Jackson. Like,
What's an adult chart?
I think of that being adult contemporary, where I think Celine Dion has to be in the top 5 at any given time. And so basically, your options in the adult contemporary are Celine Dion, I don't know, Bruce Springsteen, probably a Beatles song, another Celine Dion, probably My Heart Will Go On, and then right at the line is going to be Miss Jackson. And people are loving it. Like this is what Happy and Pharrell, like Pharrell and Happy was hitting every single chart. And like I sat there, I'm like, this was basically pre-Happy. This was the song that just broke the mold for everybody.
Well, let's go with that a little bit. I mean, Outkast by their name is a little outside the bounds of what you think about as hip hop. I remember their first music. I don't know if it was their first music video, but the first time I saw Outkast, they're wearing shoulder pads and grass skirts and rapping on a football field, and I didn't know what to make of them. But Jared, what's your hot take on Outkast and where they fit into the genre or don't?
Well, I think that, I think, at least for me, growing up in the Northeast, I definitely did not have a lot of exposure to Southern rap. And like you alluded to in the intro there, Dave, hit that the 94 or 95 Source Awards where they won the Best New Artist. And he said, the South got something to say. I think that really put them on the map. And I was just looking at, it's not like there was not Southern hip hop before Outkast, because there certainly was. But personally, being in close proximity to New York City, I never listened to, like the Ghetto Boys or UGK or 3 6 Mafia. It just like was not on my radar. And I'm sure people in Houston and Atlanta and New Orleans, there were plenty of artists that they listened to, that were great Southern artists. But I think Outkast, from that point, from their first album on, really just kind of kept pushing the boundaries and putting the South more and more on the map. And I think that this album in particular, why it was able to reach those charts, Brian, is because it's kind of like they went mainstream without compromising any of their artistic expression, which I think that they've been doing for the whole time. But, I think they really kind of perfected it with this album and the song and really just pushed it into the mainstream.
Yeah, this did feel like a breakthrough, and it felt in a lot of ways a departure from AT Aliens and Spotting Up with Docious. And
What was that
yeah,
again?
I can't try to do it twice. Apparently. And their previous albums, and that like you had these kind of huge singles that were more on the mainstream charts, and so the two singles off the album were Miss Jackson and Bombs Over Baghdad. And we talked about which song to go with, and like this song just kind of sticks with you. It's like one of the most quotable hip hop songs, like through movies or just in conversations, and like it's just got like these little great bits where like they've become part of pop culture
Yeah,
in a
absolutely.
sense. like just not even the song itself, but pieces of it. It's an interesting song to look at from that perspective. And I think Outkast is an important group from just the broader genre of hip hop trying to do something different. And, they managed to be rapping about, it's not like the themes were that different. They were still rapping about like pimps and hoes and money and girls and cars and stuff, but their whole sound, the way they dress, their approach, everything was just different, right?
Hmm. Yeah. But and that's what I think like makes them so special. Which is why I was trying to just like internalize and reflect as to like what makes them so good, what makes them so popular. And I really think it is the fact that like they Big Boy himself is a phenomenal lyricist and a phenomenal artist. And like Andre is just kind of otherworldly, but also phenomenal. But like, they've never really done that much solo, even though they're kind of like, they almost kind of need each other. And when you put those two together, like they somehow are able to have completely different styles, allow each other to explore their own styles and somehow blend it together to be a unified track.
I think the best way you can describe Andre 3000 is like if Prince were in a rap group.
That's pretty fair. That's pretty fair.
That's kind of what
He-
would come out the other side.
yeah. And I just love that they're still friends and they're so different. And that's like when we're going to get into the lyrics too, is that I didn't again realize this because you don't really digest the lyrics until you do something like this, is their lyrics too on the song, while they flow so nicely together, they're completely polar opposites. It's almost just like their personalities too. They're talking about the same thing, but from two completely different angles. And that's them. And the fact that they're able to feed off each other and be so different, but still keep that unity. It's just so incredible to actually dig in and just to see like how they've lasted so long. And then also you're like, geez, they can, because they're so different, they can go forever. Like it's both equally surprising that it worked and also just surprising that like why'd they ever stop? Like they can go on forever.
So let's talk about terminology for a minute. We have Stankonia, we have Andre 3000, we have Big Boy, and we have the Dungeon Family.
I actually wrote a bunch. Wrote a bunch of their nicknames out too. Like I didn't realize that people call him Three Stacks. And
I think that's
Big
new.
Boy. Oh, is that?
I think Three Stacks is like a newer Andre 3000 nickname.
I
I
didn't get
see.
into any nicknames for my research, so I'm excited for this.
Oh yeah. So also apparently Dookie Blossom Game 3, Johnny Vulture, Cupid Valentino, and then Big Boy has a lot. Daddy Fat Sacks, Sir Lucius Left Foot, Chico
I knew Sir
Dusty,
Lucius Left Foot.
yeah, Hot Tub Tony Francis. Just fantastic names.
Those are amazing.
So he's got I heard at least 7 Wu Gambino names in there.
That's pretty epic. Where does Andre 3000 come from?
I think that from what I read, I'm not sure exactly where the 3000 came from, but I know around this time, I don't know if it was this album or Aquemini, that he was trying to really kind of distinguish himself from Dr. Dre, and he didn't want to get them mixed up, so he just decided to go with Andre 3000.
I always sort of felt like it was a what was I gonna say? I always felt like this was kind of like a what do you call it? Rocky Horror Picture Show homage, the like or Space Odyssey, 3000, some combination of like I'm futuristic and funky and weird.
Yeah, kind of like a robot kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I read that they actually went through a lot of different name changes. Initially, they wanted to be 2 shades deep, one of them being Black Dog and one of them being Black Wolf, but I think there was a 4 shades deep in the Atlanta area. So then they wanted to call themselves the Misfits, but then there was obviously this, what is it, a punk rock band called the Misfits.
Yep.
So they looked up in the dictionary what's a synonym for Misfit, and Outkast showed up there. At least that's what the story is.
And they are members of their crew is the Dungeon Family, which is I don't know. It feels kind of like Southern Wu-Tang, like a loose membership.
I think it's kind of like it's kind of like the collective that we had talked about with Common previously, just more southern. But I think it's all kind of loosely related to Organized Noise, who's this kind of, if I call them a record label or production group of Rico Wade and a few other guys that kind of discovered them, and then they were recording in Rico Wade's basement, which they called the Dungeon, and so that's kind of where they got the Dungeon family name from. And it's them, and there's just a number of other artists, Killer Mike and Sleepy Brown and
Goody Mob and
Goody Mob,
UGK, I think now, and yep, all those guys. And Big Boy is bigger than Andre 3000. Is that where that comes from?
I don't know. He's got that big sound. I don't know.
Big
he definitely is bigger.
I mean, it's not hard being bigger than Andre 3000, who I'm sure weighs like 120
kind of
pounds.
Guy. Wet.
How tall is he, you think? Because he's skinny, muscly kind of thing, but he could. When I picture him, I think of him as like 6'2" in my head, but he's probably like 5'5", 5'6".
He is 5'10" and 159 pounds, according
That's
to
impressive.
this.
His BMI is ideal. Good for him.
Do we have anything else to add about why this is popular why this was popular before we get in the track? How popular was it? How well did this album do? And we still need to say what a Stankonia is.
This song is super catchy and relatable for a lot of people, and just really, really well done.
Yeah, I think hip hop was being. I was trying to think back to a interview that they did, and it was hip hop at this time was kind of slow, was starting to slow down and be more methodical and be harder. And they wanted to, they kind of call it like funky rave music, and they wanted to bring this back, and they wanted to, it's psychedelic, it's got a gospel feel, it's got that funk, that soul. So I think that they're bringing that faster beat back to the genre, which is fun and uplifting, but then they're doing so in traditional ways using older sounds like that funk and that gospel that are relatable for other communities that maybe didn't really have an into rap beforehand, but now it sounds like something that's familiar.
Yeah, but their like ability to go beyond the typical samples and the rave culture thing was interesting. Like I don't know if they're one of the first, but certainly one of the first mainstream rap groups to be like to pull the influence from EDM, which was really starting to take off in like the late 90s and early 2000s as like a totally new genre of music. And so it took a while for the mainstream rap to catch up, maybe until like the 2010s, really, before you start to see like rap EDM crossovers and all of this. And Outkast was influenced, they were a decade ahead on that, which I thought was kind of interesting. Stankonia, just for what it's worth, stank, apparently ATL slang for funky, and Plutonia was apparently a poster Andre 3000 had on his wall of some idyllic community. I'm not sure exactly what, from some sci-fi thing or something, and so Stank and Plutonia became Stankonia, a funky utopia.
Did not realize that. And they bought this studio and named it that, I think, for this, right before they recorded this album.
Yeah, and so getting into the track a little bit, if we can, this is again one of those songs that, this also speaks to why it was popular. You kind of know the beat and it's familiar, but you don't really. And like, of all the times I've listened to it, so like you could kind of put it together, but when you go back, it's like the wedding chorus played in reverse. And so like obviously, the Here Comes the Bride essentially played backwards to simulate the marriage or a relationship breaking up. But they had the original track with just that as the beat, and then Andre being Andre was like, oh, just play it backwards. And so like you've got that kind of, you can hear it on the drums, the like sucking in sound of the beat being played in reverse. And so like their willingness to try like cool stuff like that really works on a lot of these tracks on the album, but particularly this one, it just gives you that like otherworldly but still familiar vibe, which is kind of cool.
Very Outkast.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, and like especially see like how they got like we're going into the lyrics, but like how they got to the beat, how they got to the song, right? Jared, you talked about the recording studio. It's just talk about their differences in that. So how do they start to come up with this album, in particular this song? So Big Boy, even though they just bought a studio, Big Boy's in the studio. He's doing his studio thing, the very, very classic hip hop of trying to record and play with things versus Andre spent little time there. He's basically jamming at home and just like plucking on an acoustic guitar. And he's just trying to think of things like in his own creative way in his room with a guitar. And then that's where he talks about like, then he gets the idea, then brings it to the studio when then they start to workshop it. And just the idea of that's their collaboration is like separate and then bring it together. I can imagine how the conversation went, because I think Andre came to the table with this and basically was saying, I think it started with um, Andre and Erykah. They're broken up. They have a child together, and he can't have a conversation with Erykah's mother, who he just went with the generic Miss Jackson, so it was more relatable. Um, so it was how do he wanted to profess everything to the baby's mama, who he couldn't really talk to. So what is that conversation like? And that's Andre's version. And then it's funny to your point, like then Big Boy's like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And then it goes straight into anger that of the you got a lot of the drama. He's like, you're sending all the boys in the neighborhood to try to fight me,
Yeah.
and it's just and then it gets into yeah, okay, I'll pay that, but like what are what are you doing, what are you bringing? And it is that much more combative. It's super funny. It's like, oh, that's where you went, okay.
Yeah, your grandchild is a baby, not a paycheck, which is one of the lines from this song that I think just lives on forever.
So I think it's just like interesting, like from where like the song is like going. So you have like him kind of complaining, and then you have Andre apologizing, and then Big Boy complaining again is essentially the song, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that Big Boy in the first verse, he's just kind of pleading his case. He's like, I've been treated unfairly. Uh, I like that the very first line, my baby's drama mama, and I think that's that's just so much packed into just those three words. And I also, I every time I hear this song, I think of the song Baby Mama Drama. I don't know if you guys know that song. This is by this guy named Dave Hollister, and it's actually I was looking it up, and it came out the year before this, so I don't know if maybe that had
Hmm.
some impact on them thinking about this, or just that line, but kind of flipping it like that. I thought it's really creative, and there's just so much that just packed into those few words.
Yep, there's just so many great classic lines in this song. Um, so that's it's kind of like the opening arguments in the first verse. I kind of like that he really is kind of laying down his case. And then to me, this song really is all about Andre because like Andre is really the only one uh, writing about an actual thing here. I mean, I think, from what we research, Big Boy's verses are sort of imagined based on a variety of experiences, but Andre's are specifically about his relationship with Erykah Badu. And so, like, it's just a completely different tone and a completely different feel where he's, plaintive and apologetic. Um, and like, I don't know, Jared, do you want to get into this verse here?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, he comes out singing, which is obviously
Okay.
different from how Big Boy starts. And his I don't know if this is the verse or the bridge. Me and your daughter got a special thing going on. You say it's puppy love, we say it's full grown. Hope that we feel this way forever. You can plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather, Miss Jackson. And that's his telling Erykah about his mom. He's like, listen, I loved her. We thought this was a real thing. I can't predict what's going to happen in the future. It's a really poetic opening that he has. And then he kind of gets into the verse. I don't know if you guys want to go through it. I think a lot of people know the chorus of this song, but a few things that pop out to me, and you guys feel free to chime in. But together, dream about that crib with that Goodyear swing on the oak tree. I hope we feel like this forever. And of course,
Forever,
one of
ever?
the two things that live on forever from this song. I think that and the very beginning, the baby mamas, 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 mamas. I think those are the two things in this song that are just, whenever I hear those words, I think of this song.
Yeah. I know we're probably skipping around a little bit, but like one of the things that stick out to me rather than going through the whole song too is just like they're talking again about the same thing but very different experiences. So the end of Big Boy's first verse, he gets into the idea of paying for everything, and he's like, we were divided. She had fish fries, cookouts for my child's birthday, but then I'm not even invited. So like that argument of like, you don't hear my side of the story, you're not even inviting me to my kid's stuff when we have a kid together. And then Andre at the end of his verse, he is still talking to Erykah's mother, basically saying, you know that everything's cool, and yes, I'm gonna be there on the first day of school and graduation. And that's Jackson.
Yeah. And I think Andre also, he does this a lot of the kind of the cadence he uses. He'll kind of finish a line without completing the thought, and then kind of resume with the next bar. And I just these lines always stick out to me too. The become a magician to abracadabra, all the sadder. Thoughts of me, thoughts of she, thoughts of he. Asking what happened to the feeling that her and me had. Pray so much about it, need some knee pads. It happened for a reason, one can't be mad. And then, like you said, Brian, so know this, know everything's cool, and yes, I'll be present on the first day of school and graduation. I just love it. He does this in a lot of songs where he just plays with the words. It's really just genius.
Yeah, I mean, so much like you listen to this song, right? And you think about the singing at the beginning of the verse, you think about the forever, forever, ever. And then, but like you miss a lot of the like going back and listening past all that, you miss a lot of the like the stuff, the abracadabra, all the sadder is great, and the 10 times out of 9 now if I'm lying. Right? Like just little, he throws in these like little gems into it just to kind of, and that's kind of the whole aura they create is this like otherworldly feel with their songs. Like everything is a little like abnormal, right? It's a little off, a little bit different. And, you know, this verse too is such a unique verse, I think, in all of hip hop. It's you don't hear rappers apologizing almost ever. It's not like a particularly hip hop thing to do. You don't hear people being like repentant or like trying to make amends. That's not hood. That's not street. Like that's not,
or
you know what I mean? Like, but
or
he
dreaming
can,
about a house with a tire swing out front.
right. But Andre, does it here, and it's an incredible verse. And then, maybe it's because of the juxtaposition with Big Boy, when you get into the third verse where, it just gets harder and harder. Um, I don't know, Brian, you talked a little bit about that, but like, that kind of, puts the shell back on the song, right? Like it gets back into like what your typical street response would be.
Yeah, it's I'm reminded too of the interview I think with Erykah when she was recording some songs and this song came out, and they asked her, "Hey, have you heard this song?" Because knowing that it was about her, and when she first heard the song, because they started to play it for her, she first heard Big Boy's song. She's like, "I don't like that. I don't like that at all." And she's just like, "Hey, wait, this is about me? This is awful." And then Andres came on, is like, oh, that's sweet. Okay, I get it. I understand that they're not talking for each other. This is his experience. This is his experience. So yeah, there's definitely the harder layer, and it doesn't, even when Andre kind of cools off the tension from the first verse, it doesn't stay cool. It goes back into Big Boy's verse 3 of the gets back into the argument, like they're having an argument, like he's actually arguing with his baby mama of like, look at the way he treats me. Well, like, look at the way you treat me. And he's like, and he's just like, it's like he's having a fight with somebody on the other line. It's like, you see all your little nosy ass homegirls. It's like, they done, got your ass set up the creek. Like, it's just, it's an argument about like the whole situation and just never gives in. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, the whole song is like a criticism sandwich where you start off with a criticism and then there's a compliment in the middle, and then but he ends off even harder. It's a
He takes a big bite.
Big piece of bread in the bottom. Yeah.
I do love in the third verse, like it just kind of ratchets things up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And like, you're left up a paddle, without a paddle, left to straddle, ride this thing out, and then just dick in her mouth.
Yeah,
that one comes out of nowhere.
10.
That one comes out of
Right,
nowhere.
like where did that come from?
Yeah.
He's like,
to her girl.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you mean the girl that your home girl saying something? Oh, well, let me have sex with her, so that now you're going to be mad at her and me. Take that.
It's just like one of those hip hop mic drop things, and they like the way they do it in the song with the extra echo on the voice, and they cut the beat right there, so it's like really want to make sure
focus
you
on this.
just listen to this line slap you in the face.
And then, of course, 2 lines after that is my
jealousy,
favorite
infidelity,
lines.
envy, cheating, beating. In the A to G, they be the same thing.
It lives on in my mind. It is. It's 100% exactly how it sounds in my head for decades.
Perfect.
Song's 20 years old. That's exactly how it sounds.
I really want to know how they landed on $1 trillion. I wonder if that was a discussion. Is $1 million enough?
Like millions? No. Billion? No.
Billion doesn't sound right.
But you think about how many times you hear him say "I'm sorry" in this song, and how many times this song has been played since its inception.
Could have been said 1 trillion times.
Could certainly be.
This song, the 20-year anniversary was in October, and it just went platinum 20 years later. Outkast released a 20-year anniversary of this album. So they put out this track, of course, again, like the whole album with a bunch of bonus tracks. There's like a remix of this by Mr. Drunk, which is, I wouldn't suggest listening to it.
Of course he is.
It's a hard rock remix that nobody asked for, which I don't think particularly works because you lose the whole amazingness of the beat on the song. But then you also get the a cappella versions of this and Bombs Over Baghdad on the special release edition, which is fun if you just want to listen to like Andre's voice, which is pretty damn cool on this. But yeah, I thought it was neat. Like this song and Bombs Over Baghdad like just went platinum like 6 months ago, which is kind of interesting.
I didn't know if you guys had a chance to check out the video for this, because I had not recalled it in my head thinking back, and then I watched it and I was like, this video is terrible. I don't understand what they're doing. You like the video?
Of course, it's singing animals. Of course I like when you got an owl like shaking his head going, "Who I am for real." Like that's the owl. Like now that's another one too. Like whenever I hear "whoo," all I think of is like an owl shaking his head.
I don't know. It didn't do it for me. It's like the two of them fixing up a house the whole time and things going wrong. And I get how that's kind of relatable to the song, but it just, I needed something else there.
I will say it was a deep message. So it's a little bit quirky on the surface because you've also got a singing turtle and you got like a singing cat and like the animals are singing, walking over the piano. But like it took me a little bit, and like I appreciate its brilliance when you watch it for the 10th time and you're like, okay, I get it now. But sometimes like if it's that deep, you're like, is it too deep?
Maybe I just need to watch it.
There's no women in the video, which is weird. I find that weird.
That's true.
Just like a song about women.
Just two of them and animals.
Yeah, well, it's
the
because
two of them and animals.
It's because they broke up. They're broken up, so they're apologizing and they're trying to fix it. They're trying to fix a busted house, and and there's too many holes. There's too many issues. And that's why it's a never-ending battle.
And the wallpaper keeps falling down over and over and over and over
Yep.
and over again.
Maybe that's the message here. Is when
is.
you can't get your relationships together, you're stuck in a crappy house with animals and leaky ceilings.
Mm-hmm. With another dude.
With another dude
And
who's
no
just
food.
yelling for no
Yeah.
reason. I was gonna say the video for me was one of my where it went wrong was why is Andre 3000 wearing a Confederate flag belt?
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like, huh.
That one, yeah, it's really interesting to me that a lot of his paraphernalia in this, or the black and white flag, black and white American flag, is also the background for their album. So it's really interesting that a lot of the right wing, or a lot of those symbols that are utilized, like kind of symbols of hate utilized now, were utilized as like a symbol of empowerment, like in a lot of their imagery in the year 2000. So that was super interesting.
I'm sure he had some reasoning behind it. He's not the kind of guy who would do that just this.
I mean, I'm
be
sure
fun
it's the
kind
sort
thing.
of like reclaiming this like as a fuck you
Yeah.
of like I'm gonna wear this and like whatever, but it just like that didn't I don't think that rationale carries is what I'm saying, if that is the rationale for it.
Well, sometimes you wear shoulder pads with spikes and a Confederate flag, and other times you wear
And
green
purple.
wigs. I don't. Not all your fashion choices are going to hit.
You know, one thing I noticed on that Source Awards when he goes up there and says the South's got something to say, he's wearing a purple dashiki at the time as well. That
He
was early
is.
on.
And being booed off stage. Yeah, it's just as a quick aside on like the South has something to say. Apparently, this is like also inspired all kinds of like this is one of the most famous moments in hip hop. Has inspired a number of productions, including a whole NPR production on the rise of Southern hip hop. They have a whole music project you can check out about that, and a new book. Check it out on Nook.
Hit us up on
Yeah.
Nook.
Chronicling Stankonia, the rise of the hip hop South.
I saw that. I think that just came out this month
It
in
is. It's
February.
pretty new, and it has Andre in his purple dashiki, I believe, on the front.
I'm glad you got the book reference in there. I was starting to get worried.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean to go from where they were then to where they ended up, and total pop culture phenomenon. But does this song go wrong other than Andre's belt for anywhere else for anyone?
I don't think the song goes wrong for me. To me, it's outside the song. To me, it's outcast of like what could they be. Like the reason why they stopped collaborating is not necessarily because, I mean, they're still the best of friends and still hang out, but they're just so different. They're just artistically in different areas, and they're just exploring different things. So I think of and it's so prevalent how different they are on the song the more you look at it. And I think more of like if they were just a little bit more um harmonious in their vision of like, let's see how far Outcast can go, rather than I want to do this, I want to do that, and then maybe we'll pair back in the future. Like, what could they have continued to be? Um, but that's where. But would they have had the power, and would Stankonia have been at what it was if they were more aligned, or is that what makes them so popular in this short run? Well, I don't know.
So, I mean, I would look at that almost the other way and say I'm surprised they lasted as long as they did. I mean, they went from 94 to 2006. And, of course, 94 is only like their first release, so they had been rapping before that. And just
Mhm.
like when you have an artist like Andre, like I think it's surprising that he's stuck with it for that long because he doesn't strike me like he strikes me as like a musician, right? Like not just a rapper. Like he's
Mhm.
an artist, a musician. Like he's done acting. They did Idlewild, the soundtrack, which I think was their last collaboration. Um, large groan from Jared.
I do think that's right though. The way that you said that, I love that. Is that I do think of Big Boy as a rapper, and I think of
Yep.
Andre as an artist.
He's definitely the creative driving force of the two of them, I think. And I guess it's telling that, Idlewild aside, it's just sad for me that could be their last collaboration together. But I think it's fitting for Speakerbox, The Love Below. They literally just recorded 2 separate albums and slapped them together, and it worked amazingly. And they were featured on some of each other's songs. But I think you're right, David. I think that he's just like, I don't know if it was after ATLians or their first album that he kind of like stopped eating meat and stopped smoking and just kind of started doing his own thing and really becoming Andre 3000. But yeah, it's like lightning in a bottle. It's like, how many albums can you get this amazing talent to like stick around on? It sucks that it's the last album was 2006. It's been 14 15 years without this incredible talented group putting out anything, any album together.
Yeah. What was really helpful for me though is that I did feel like because I was worried initially in the research of like what happened to Outkast was my big question. Like what was their falling out and then like doing all this. Like I did love, to me it was still a happy ending, even though maybe not necessarily for the fan base because we don't get more Outkast yet. But it was like they're still best of friends, and they were asking Big Boy in an interview, they're like, when you know you guys don't, you're best friends, but you don't appear in public anymore. Like, what happened? And they're like, basically, they hang out every weekend. They're at each other's house. They just do it together because they're like, anytime we show up together in public, the immediate question is, oh, is Outkast back together? Outkast is doing it. And he's like, we've always been together. We're just in different places. And he's like, whenever Andre wants to record an album, we'll record an album because like Big Boy's still in the scene. Just it's like, but Andre is going to be Andre. You just got to let him do his thing, and if it comes back, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But the fact that they're still best of friends, and that when they're ready, it may happen, I thought was like that. That felt good to me.
Yep. So before we wrap up, a couple odds and ends. Does anyone want to jump on the actual Miss Jackson, Miss Erykah Badu's mom's reaction to the song, which I thought was one of the best things I read about this?
Go ahead, Dave.
So when she found out about it, just all in, totally bought in, got a license, got the vanity license plate, Miss Jackson, like just loved the song. She's like, where are my royalties? Listen to it all the time, like full buy-in, which I think is adorable and amazing. Lasting power of this song, of course, the best use of this song on Diamonds Are Forever by Kanye West. Erykah Badu actually did some kind of cover of it, which is not particularly good, as sort of like a clapback, but it doesn't really work. And then the absolutely horrendous DJ Khaled song, I think it's Just Us, which just kind of...
And another one.
And another one. Come
on.
Another one. Khaled.
He's not the best music, is all I'm gonna say. But it is like the worst thing that could have happened to this song. It's just like, let's take the beat and then everyone's gonna like it because it has this super recognizable beat, and then we'll have lesser rappers do lesser rapping over it. It's just,
luckily this song can withstand any horrible anything that comes at it, because it's a foundational bedrock song in hip hop.
Yeah, just don't try to remake it. It's kind of perfect as it is. So with that, and not to bury the lead too much, what are we gonna rate this?
I didn't even think about the rating system.
I think Forever Evers.
Ooh, that's a good one. I want to go with Dave. What was their second album?
ATLians.
ATLians is the second one. How many Spadiopolidociouses?
Yes,
that was a track. That's a track off the Aquemini
That's off
album.
the Aquemini, right?
Yeah.
Forever Ever is probably more appropriate.
How many hula skirts?
We can do Spadiati Dopaliciouses.
All right, how many Spadiopolidociouses? Perfect.
So having said what, I've kind of given you the background to my rating, but so I will say, like, the song is great. Like, I enjoyed listening to it over and over again. My only other critique is that it's as many of the songs of its time, is very long, at like 4.5 minutes, and the last like minute and a half or so is a lot of outro. So I didn't find myself actually wanting to listen to the song over and over and over again. I think it's a fun song. I think it's had an incredible staying power and good influence, but not a perfect track for me. So I'm going to give it 4 spotty opera pieces.
That's not where I thought you were going to go with it. To me, it is a perfect track. I think that, again, we talked about, I think the lyrics are really interesting. I think their connection is super interesting. I think the way that they play with the beat is really incredible, plus also the beat itself. I can't think of a single moment in life that this song is not appropriate. This song comes on at a work function, on it. If this song comes on in a wedding, I'm here for it. If this song comes on at a funeral, I'm here for it. This song transcends any event. To me, that just means 5 stars.
What about a bar mitzvah?
Oh my God, that bar mitzvah kid is getting in that chair the moment the song comes on, and he is getting launched into the ceiling. But yeah, I mean, it's 5 spotty outy dope-aliciouses.
All right, I'm gonna meet you guys in the middle. Go 4.5 spotty outy dope deliciouses. I don't think it's quite a perfect song. I think I want more Andre in it. I
That's
love
fair.
Big Boy's verses, but I don't think it kind of sets it up as that perfect song that I think a lot of, I felt that way about Common, Dead Prez this year. I think I can't remember what I gave a 5 early on, but I revised that. But it just doesn't perfect it for me. And Stankonia, I think this is probably like my 3rd or 4th favorite Outkast album behind ATLiens and Aquemini and Speaker Box Love Below. I don't think I ever actually listened to this album straight through, honestly, when it came out. I think I was kind of turned off by Bombs Over Baghdad when it first dropped. But it is a fantastic song, and it gets in your ear, and you want to sing along to it. And I think 4.5 is where I stand on that.
I think one more Andre verse would do it. I think you're right. I think if you got a 4th verse in the song, and there was certainly time for it.
Or if they split one, maybe.
Right. Go halvesies on a verse.
That's true.
All right. Well, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I have 2 final thoughts. One, Outkast came out with the line cooler than a polar bear's toenail, which is maybe just the fucking best line of all time. The only other thing I was reading, is Andre and Erykah Badu's son is named Seven. And whenever I think of that name, it always reminds me of Seinfeld, because there's an episode called The Seven where George is like insisting that 7 is the perfect name for a kid. And I looked it up, and that came out in February of 96, and 7 was born in November 1997. Was Dre a big Seinfeld fan and named his son after that episode? I don't know, but it's food for thought, and I think about it.
Well, he didn't not do that.
It's true.
It's true.
Can't prove a negative.
Can't prove that he didn't do it. He was there for his graduation too, so
Yes.
in case anyone was wondering.
Also, that kid looks exactly like him. It's crazy.
Yes, he does. All right, well, that is, I think, the last full episode of the season. We've got some outros, some outtakes. There might be a bonus episode.
A bonus episode?
We're not going to spoil it. You're just going to have to keep listening to the silence at the end of the album and hope something else comes on.
until the CD stops completely, and then
until the CD is completely done, and then it's done.
Yes. I was alone. I was all
no
by
one
myself.
Was looking.
I was all by myself.
I was thinking of you.
No one was looking. I was thinking of you. Oh yeah, did I mention I was all by myself?
Whenever I hear this song, all I hear is Jared's voice in my head when I hear cheating, beating. That part just lives on in my mind, in my brain. When Big Boy says that, I can't not hear Jared's voice of cheating, beating.
Glad I had that impression on you.
Cheating, beating, cheating, beating, cheating, beating, cheating, beating, cheating, beating, cheating.